No, it says you've recorded.
There we go.
Yeah.
We're recording. Yeah. All right, guys. So want to thank everybody for coming today to What's Your Angle podcast. This is the second podcast that we've put together. It's a really special one for me. I've got two of my favorite people in the same virtual room. I've Russell Shaw and Max Lehman. And Russ is a longtime mentor of mine and a really phenomenal real estate agent, run a really successful team in the Phoenix area for, what is it, Russell? Like it's 40 years now. How long have you guys?
44 years, but I wouldn't call what I'm doing right now that successful.
Well,
our market
you're still here. That's successful.
That's true. That's true.
Well, I think and I do want to dive into what does the market look like right now and what do we do in a recession. But if you don't mind, first, Russ, could you? I know you're a really humble guy, but would you mind explaining sort of your history in the business, how you started, how you got to where you are, and then what I've always found phenomenal is just how long you've been producing at such a high level.
Well, it went in spurts. Like I'd say my first 12 years in the business, I was an ordinary agent. I was doing somewhere between maybe 17 and 23 deals a year. And it was mostly buyers. The listings that I got and sold were sort of handed to me, like I'd sold them a house and they needed to sell their house. I didn't really understand how to list. I would say, a nincompoop on pricing property. So I was living deal to deal. I literally was constantly broke, that sort of thing. I finally realized that all of the truly successful agents, there's a few exceptions around the country, but almost all of the truly successful agents have a listing-based business. Like long-term successful agents have a listing-based business. Doesn't mean they don't work buyers or have buyers, but the buyers come because they have the listings. And so I decided to become a lister. And I immediately got 12 listings. This was a fantastic thing. They were all expired, and I had brilliantly taken them at the price they had previously been listed at and didn't sell any one of them. I thought, now I'm doing something wrong. I'm sort of a high IQ guy, and I could see if I couldn't sell any of those, that listings weren't that great. And I set about trying to figure out how to price a listing. This was actually mysterious to me for the longest time. And I knew it could be done because all successful agents know how to do it. But what I also discovered is that not one of those successful agents anywhere can teach someone else how to do it. Like when you ask a successful agent, how do you figure out the price? And usually what you hear back is sort of this, I don't know, I'll call it gibberish. It basically comes down to, it's this knack I have. I'm just really good at this. But how did you get good?
You've always said, and this is one of the things I love about you, is that you think about things a lot and you write them down and you share them. And you've always shared that you feel like someone's a true expert when they can teach the thing that they're doing. Is that what you realized that, or had you always known that you have to be able to teach something in order to be an expert?
I don't want to say I've always known it, but what I know is that if a person is competent on the subject of pricing, they could easily teach that to someone who didn't know much about it. Right. And the first thing I collided with, because I saw everyone was using price per square foot. And I thought, when Zillow came along, that's all they use. That's what all automated automated valuation systems use price per square foot. If it were a correct method, Zillow would be correct pretty much all the time.
Right.
But it obviously isn't a valid method because there's too many different things that an appraiser is trained in that you can't program. They just can't quite do it.
So let me
So
ask
anyway,
you.
yeah.
So let me ask you about that, because on my side, the lending side, right? Like when we're talking to agents and they say,
Mhm.
"Oh, well, this is the price per square foot. This is the price per square foot," and we always say, the appraisers aren't going to use price per square foot.
Right.
So now, I'm not a realtor. I didn't get my license. I don't go price homes. So what is the appropriate way
Well, it's
to price a home?
comparable. It's literally, well, it oddly, like here, let me just give you a couple pieces of data right out of the Marshall and Swift's appraisal handbook. The first one is, and any appraiser would know this, if there's a greater than 20% difference in the size of the house, it may not be used as a comp, period.
Mm-hmm.
There's no extrapolation possible. If it's a two-story versus a single story, again, there's no extrapolation possible. Single-story homes always sell for more per square foot than a two-story home. Yeah.
Can I explain something that's, I mean, this goes along with your point. So I live in Allendale, which is the neighborhood's built, it's mid-century, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the 50s and 60s, the architects were not very good at building two-story houses, designing two-story houses. When you walk in these homes today, if it's a two-story house that has 8-foot ceilings, the downstairs is really chopped up, there's no flow to it whatsoever, and they sell for it's a completely different ballpark of of prices than the single-story home. So I just wanted to throw that out there as a kind of an example for the listeners.
Yeah, it just literally, you can't, there's no extrapolation. You can't use it as a comp.
Right.
So the rule would be, if you had, let's just to make a simple example, let's say you had a 2,000 square foot home next to a 1,500 square foot home, and pretend both of them have the same identical level of amenities. So is the 2,000 square foot home worth more? Of course it is. Is it worth 25% more? No, it absolutely is not, because the expensive rooms are the bathroom and the kitchen. So basically, you'd have to price it based on looking at something sort of like it, literally something sort of like it. So the first thing I learned to do that gave me an inside look at pricing was I took all the active, all the pending, all the expired, all the canceled in any particular area I was trying to figure the price of a house. This was actually sort of the key to me, but because I finally wound up feeling confident on what a house was worth by seeing I could go in and figure out, like, well, if here's one down the street that's very similar, has been on the market for, I don't know, 119 days, and it hasn't sold, I can see that. Then I can look and go, is that house on lockbox? If no, then that might be a problem showing it. But if yes, then I can go, well, clearly the one I'm trying to price is worth less than that. It's just literally data like that. And I would be telling it to the seller.
Right.
Like, I'm not cherry picking the data. And I go, here's one that didn't sell. Here's one that sold. They sold it in 2 days. It's like yours. I think they took too little money for it because they didn't give it enough exposure on the market. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you're literally taking datum per datum per datum and then figuring it out. So once I became a lister, I went from I popped it up my first year as a lister. I sold 38 houses. Then I plateaued. Then I popped it up to 60, and I stayed at around 60 houses, like 61, 62 for 3 years. Then I popped it up to 100. And that's when I hired an assistant. When I went from that to get to 60 deals, you can't do it.
You did 60. You did 60 without an assistant?
Well, Wendy helped. I mean, the two of us, but we had Wendy, and then her mom helped some. But by the time we were going to 100, we had to have more help.
And I actually did a little bit of research on you before we started, but the audience probably has not. So can you tell us who Wendy is?
Wendy is my ex-wife. Wendy is my business partner and my closest friend. And we were married for 30 years. And now she has her house. We've been separated, I don't know, 12, 13 years. We own all the real estate together. We don't argue or fight about anything. One time, some guy I was mentoring in California, he said, do you mind if I ask you a personal question? I said, no, I don't mind. He said, how much do you pay Wendy? Do you have to pay Wendy? I said, I don't pay Wendy anything. He said, you don't? I said, no, Wendy pays me. Wendy has handled the finances in our marriage and in our business for so long. I just, when a check comes in, I just put them on her desk. I see that we've been paid, but I mean, I don't I don't do anything with it. She does. And it's those, and I don't worry about money.
Yeah.
I've transcended, I have all my credit cards paid on auto, like they come out automatically, my utility bill. So I don't really concern myself. I'm really serious. This was
No,
sort of my goal all along. I don't want to fiddle around. Like I just buy what I want and don't buy what I don't want. And I don't look at the bills. And I usually open my mail for that kind of stuff every couple of months and route them into a basket at the office. I'm not kidding. It's just, I'm not really into like, oh my God, the price of this just went up. Oh God, gas is $6. What am I going to do? Pay the $6. I don't know what my choices were. I don't. There's a certain thing. People go, well, the interest rate's 8%. What do you do? If you want a house, you buy the house. I don't know what your choices were. You could rent, or you could stay in the house you're in. But eventually, like when I bought my first house, it was a 13% interest rate.
right.
And that the rates had come down to 13.
Yeah, from about 18.
Yes, actually it
Yeah.
was 17 and a half.
Yeah.
So 13 seemed like, well, this is better than what we had. And the house I live in now, I've been in it 32 years. It was an 8.5% loan.
Well,
And
do
that
you want to
seemed like
refinance
free
that
money.
now? I could take you down to 8% right now.
It's been free and clear a long time, Max. I don't have any loans. I don't owe any money. But it's so funny to me. So there's this shock because people who've been thinking of 3%, 8% seems so damn high to them.
Yeah.
But it actually, relatively speaking, isn't that high. But what'll happen is eventually people buy and sell houses for two reasons. Two types of reasons. Personal reasons are market reasons. Market reasons have sort of gone away.
Mm-hmm.
Personal reasons is what's left. But people eventually, like if the guy lives in Phoenix and he's been transferred to, I don't know, Ames, Iowa, he's going to probably not want to have his house as a rental forever.
Yeah.
And there's a certain point he's going, well, I'm going to have to sell it and buy one in Ames, which will be cheaper. That's
Life
one of the
events.
things.
Yeah, life events, that's not going to stop. People are going to
Never.
they're going to form households, they're going to separate, kids are going to leave, people are going to move. Like life events happen. That won't stop anything.
One of the things that's funny is there was a guy, he was part of a Craig Proctor group. This just occurred to me. He was part of a Craig Proctor group, and nothing he had was selling. And so I explained to him, I've got a website. I can't recall the exact link, but I can tell you I have a website where I was teaching a class on how to price property. The original video for it is long gone, but the notes that were taken from the class, an economist named John Wake sat in that first class that was videoed, and he took very detailed notes, and I still have those notes on the website for that class on pricing homes. But what was funny is I explained to this guy, he was down in Tucson, what was wrong. And so he priced all of his houses correctly, and then he starts selling them. He then tells all the people in this Craig Proctor group about how I fixed his business. I didn't fix his business. I just got him to understand that it didn't matter if you had an appraisal for a house that said it's worth X. If it wasn't selling, it wasn't worth that.
Right.
And it was worth what someone would pay for it today. So I start getting calls literally from all over the country from monster producers. Actually, about half of them were doing a hell of a lot more business than I was. And the conversations all went like this. The only thing that changed was the number. Hi, I'm in Glendale, California, and I've got 47 listings, and they're all properly priced, and none of them are selling. Or it would be, I'm from something Waco, Texas. I've got 87 listings, and they're all properly priced, and none of them are selling. I've got appraisals on all of them. And each conversation, I would let the person explain to me how they were all properly priced. And I said, well, I can tell you something. None of your listings are properly priced. And each one of them, these were not stupid people. These were really successful agents. And each one of them said, well, how the hell would you know that? And I said, because we're on the phone.
Right. They're not selling.
You're talking to me. That's how I know. They're not selling. So the correct definition of a properly priced listing is it will sell in the market it's in at the price you're asking. That's properly priced. If that's not true, it's not properly priced. And so we've had markets. I know you've had it in Austin. I know we've had it in Phoenix where the prices were going up so fast. We could price a house at 400 and think, well, the comp showed it at 400 easily, but we sold it for 550.
Yeah.
I mean, and then it goes in different, but you have to, how can you predict these things? Supply and demand.
Right.
You can easily see it if you compare the inventory. If you have no inventory and you can see they all sold at a certain price, what do you know? The one you're listing will sell for more than that price. How much more? I don't know yet. But does that make sense what I'm saying?
It makes perfect sense.
100%.
Yeah. And that was the problem that you guys were solving in Phoenix and that we were solving here, was how do we make sure that we maximize what this is going to sell for? And there's a process for that that's different than the process that we now have to take, which is how can we try to make sure that it sells as close to the listing price as we possibly can. Yeah. It's a little different problem to solve. So,
but it's the same procedure. Yeah. It's like sometimes you get houses where people don't want it. You can't, like, I'll tell you one thing that is the most amazing data I uncovered in Phoenix, but I think is true everywhere. If you say, what is the number one complaint that the public has against realtors? I mean, for real, the number one complaint, and agents have the same complaint about other realtors.
They don't care, I think. Is that what you said?
They won't return a phone call.
Right.
They won't return a phone call. So when a listing agent puts in the listing, must call listing agent to show. That's like a neon sign flashing. If you have any other inventory to look at, skip this one.
Right.
That's what it means to the other agent. So I just found that sometimes I could come in behind another agent and just simply call the seller to see if it's okay to show at a certain time, and have it on lockbox, with a call before showing code in the box. And I thought it instantly brings activity because they don't want to call the other agent. You can get away with it on a $2 million house.
Right.
But on a $500,000 house, nobody wants to call the other agent.
Well, and what you said a second ago, especially, it doesn't even have to be a high inventory market. If there's any inventory in the market, you do what you can to have easy showings, and that's not an easy showing. So
there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Did I cover what you wanted, or have I?
Well, no, yeah, absolutely. Because you just, dropped a million different nuggets of knowledge. So thank you. That's
okay.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm curious. So where you were, you said you did 100 deals whenever you hired your first person, but you're still working with Wendy, and then you guys hired your first person. How'd you scale from there? Where did you guys? I know how many deals a year are you guys doing right now, and what was the?
Oh God, we're in the toilet now. But we got it up to, our best year would have been 2006. We closed 403 transactions.
Okay.
403. That would have been awesome. Right now, we're somewhere less than 100.
Oh wow! Okay.
I mean, it's just in the toilet. It's just it's not, and it won't matter. In fact, we stopped our television ads. We were down to spending 30,000 a month, 28,000 actually, and we just took them off the air. Wouldn't matter what we'd have said, the people weren't calling. We're getting as many calls just from people who've seen the ad before as we were by running the ads, because it's like when we were doing short sales, the only sellers we had at that time with equity were dead. They were estate sales.
Okay.
So they were literally like somebody died. Well, this is like that. No, if they're not going to move, it won't matter what the ad says. So anyway,
We've been seeing a very similar thing. Eric and I talk about it, and those out there that know me knows my wife runs all of our marketing. But serving up Facebook ads, Yelp ads, different things like that, you're not really serving anybody. Nobody's really picking them up.
right.
So similar situation here, right? Like we're not spending the money because it's not really going anywhere.
Can I tell you what my theory on that is?
Yeah.
So the market in Austin is down 25% by volume, and our leads program is down 60%. So you go, oh wow, is something broken with the leads program? Well, thankfully I can talk to Max and Russell. I can talk to you, and whenever I hear that others are having the same problems with marketed leads, it's not something wrong with the program. I think what's happening is that whenever the market shrinks like it does, they don't make it. The leads, the buyers and sellers don't make it to marketing. They're tackled by people that are prospecting before they're going to hit any sort of marketing. So if you want to keep your business up right now, you've got to start prospecting, and that's something that, unfortunately, where you are, Russell, where I am, like my time can't be spent making outbound calls, but agents certainly can. They can absolutely do that to try to keep your business up.
I have found, to piggyback on that live communication, like with someone, is right now. This is not always a correct statement, but right now in the current environment we're in, because people do have questions. There's a lot of misleading. I don't want to call them lies. There's a lot of misleading information in the media that would give a distorted perspective to a buyer or seller, actually. Like every area, if you take the Austin area, but it'll be similar to Phoenix. I just won't be able to rattle off the different parts of Austin.
Right.
But there's areas here that are still a pretty decent seller market. There's also areas that are clearly a buyer market. And that is the difference is, what is the supply demand? When you have, like, let's say you have a 6-month supply, that is a balanced market. Like a normal supply would be around 4 months. But when you get down, if you have an 8-month supply, that is a screamingly hot buyer's market with downward pressure on prices.
That was 2009, if I remember correctly. I remember Austin had around 9 months of inventory in 2009. Where were you guys? You guys were nailed by the foreclosure crisis.
Yes.
And I'll explain the difference. So in Texas, there's a state law that you cannot do a cash out above 80% of the home's value. So you have to keep 20% of the equity in your home by law. And that saved us during the Great Financial Crisis. And that wasn't the case in Phoenix. You guys had to slog through, I mean, how many years of it of short sales?
Oh my God, it was such a mess. At one time we were doing, some woman from a title company came up to me at some banquet and she said, do you know who was #1 in the state for short sales? And I said, no, who? She said, you and Wendy. And I went, really? I didn't know. But we had 3 people doing nothing but processing short sales. It just was very time-consuming work negotiating with the banks. I never got into REO, so that was very different. I just felt I didn't want to have a one single source for my business that someone could go, we don't like how you handled this, goodbye. Or here's a listing we want you to take. It's 70 miles from where you are, and it's for sale for 30,000, and you're going to take it if you want to keep these others.
Right.
I thought that's really not the life for me. I wanted the right to say screw you to anyone, but I mean that literally. I didn't want to feel trapped. Where on a short sale, the only people we actually had that were lunatics were the banks and the companies handling the stuff for the banks. but at least we could know what we were dealing with.
Right.
Anyway,
so tell us. So we talked about this for a minute. I said to you, hey, how are you dealing with the recession? And you corrected me. I mean, it is a correction. You said, well, we're not really in a recession. Would you mind saying again what you told me a little bit ago about your opinion of the market?
Not at all. A recession means like you have problems with unemployment, you have problems with the entire economy. So when you have a recession, you have the economy going haywire. Our economy is not going haywire. And I don't really know that it is nationally or in other cities. I think that I know a number of people. Gary Keller, for example, is predicting or has predicted repeatedly that there's going to be a recession and sort of a rolling recession. But a recession you would have so many other things. The person that I look to the most, he's a writer for the New York Times, is an economist named Paul Krugman.
Yeah.
And I find his stuff to be more insightful, understandable, and useful than practically anyone else. What I like the most about him, besides the fact that he's just utterly brilliant, is whenever he makes a prediction or a statement that he later sees was wrong, he goes out of his way to point out he was wrong. So he doesn't have this fixation of defending how he was really right. Like I remember one time, Paul Greenspan, we used to run the Fed, when he made a bunch of predictions and it went the absolute opposite of what he said. And his response to this was the market didn't behave like it was supposed to. And I thought that's really nice because he was apparently the market didn't know he was in charge of deciding how it would go.
There's a lot of guys out there that do that still to this day. I can actually think of 3 that I won't name. I don't want to call anybody out, but that is often what you hear. I wasn't wrong. The market didn't do what it was supposed to do. Or the Fed didn't do what they were supposed to do.
Or the number wrong.
I don't know why these guys, I learned a long time ago that if you just hedge yourself with, this is probably what's going to happen, but it might not. I just think this is the highest likelihood event. Then whenever you're wrong, it doesn't matter. You called it. You said, hey, something else.
Well, I'll tell you, I've gotten real good at because people ask me all the time, what do you think rates are going to do? Well, they're going to do one of 3 things. This is what I think is going to happen, but most of my predictions are wrong. So take that for what it's worth. And then
there's no one. Let me say this. The first thing, I always call people out that are like pompous liars anyway. I like to do it, and I think it's important to do it. It's become fashionable for people to predict disaster in real estate. That's number one. And there's tons of people on YouTube and columnists. These people do not have the slightest idea of what they're talking about. They don't really look at the market. They give an example. Goldman Sachs predicted a 25% drop in prices for Phoenix. The time period this is really, and I just thought, I don't know what the hell they think. I don't know where they get their data. They couldn't be from studying Phoenix. The year that they said was prices would go down 25%, they went up 9%. Mm-hmm. Now, that's just an example. If there's a prediction that Goldman Sachs has ever made on any subject that would affect other people, I'd be damned if I've ever seen it. I'm serious. But they're this giant company, and people think, well, they must know stuff. I have not observed that know stuff. I've actually observed the opposite. I wouldn't trust anything they said. And it's like there's some things that are so easy to observe that anyone could just look. If you just no, don't take an opinion, just look. In the first place, people saying, let's take interest rate predictions. There's some guy, and I think he's fairly brilliant, Moshem. I can't even say
his name. His name is Logan Motoshami.
Yes. Has he ever actually made a prediction that was true? I haven't observed it yet. But the guy is extremely well educated and very articulate.
Yeah.
And I do not believe he's fear mongering or trying to say something deliberately. But anytime you get someone making interest rate predictions, I don't know where the hell is there anyone ever who's been able to predict mortgage interest rates with any certainty and confidence? My answer is not that I've ever seen. You can make a guess and go, they're kind of go up or they might come down. But the idea of announcing it, no, I would say no.
But
It's not, it isn't.
back to our earlier point though, it's the market not behaving the way that it's supposed to.
Yes, it's just not. It should have done this. And here's the thing: when prices were shooting up, let me go back to like 2000, late 2004, 2005, and prices started going up. And I was an idiot and didn't know they were going up. So let me just be really candid here. And we would take a listing and find out the price would get bid way high. And finally, I remember one where we sold a house it was a median priced home for about $80,000 more than we'd listed it for. And my response to that was, this is just unreal. So this was the decision I made about it. It's unreal. So it didn't become information that I could then go, my God, this is happening. This is what a thing happening in the market. It was an unreal thing. So you can make a decision about anything. Won't matter what the decision is. That decision will govern how you think about it. Period.
Yeah.
Period. I mean, you could make a decision like, oh, because I lost this deal, I probably will fail. You're going to fail if you make that decision. You could have a decision, this deal fell out of escrow and I was really counting on it, but it doesn't matter. I succeed no matter what. That'll be the outcome. You'll succeed no matter what. People have this, if they're waiting for the external environment to tell them how to feel, they're likely to make very stupid decisions, because most of the people making predictions are fear mongering.
Yeah.
They're not even necessarily vicious. They're just stupid themselves. Like if you look at the stuff on the media, it's like anything that's sensational. That's fantastic.
Max and I talk about this a lot, and we say it in a slightly different way. I think that we both believe that we're going to succeed no matter what. And so you look at it and you say, well, okay, we're operating in this arena and it is, we can't change it. We can't change anything. What can you change? Well, you can change how hard you're working, how effectively you're working, and then what your mindset is, hopefully, right? Mindset, sometimes, you have to fix that or whatnot, you pressure on it. So you can effectively decide, am I going to work hard? Am I going to work smart? And am I going to be positive about it? And that's really the only thing that I've been able to come up with where I can actually change my situation, is just by doing those things. And I think you're saying the same thing.
Yes.
You just have a slightly different way of communicating it. So
yeah, I like to say it's like the two things that we can control is a positive attitude and positive actions. And if you have those two things, they will lead to transactions. It's just a matter of when. But to your point and Eric's point, in this environment that we're in, and it is not fun, nobody's enjoying it. Mindset, in my opinion, is the most important thing.
Yes.
And that is going to be what makes the difference between those of us that are still here in 2025 and those that are doing something else in 2025.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree with what you just said, Max. Mindset is not a thing. It's not an important thing. It is the important thing. And I'd even take one of the little things you said and go, let's improve that. You go, it's not fun. Change your mind on that.
Right. No, you're right.
Like,
you're 100%.
Seriously, because here's a rule. Whatever you resist, you get. So someone who has I don't want to lose any deals, they're creating losing deals.
Right.
someone who goes, oh God, this wrecks everything. Why would you make a decision like that? So some stupid deal falls out of escrow. Here's a rule. If they go in escrow, if you took, I think in a normal market, 10% of all the deals that go into escrow fall out of escrow.
That sounds true. I mean, it feels like a correct.
Yeah. Well, just check with your local title company.
Yeah.
That'll tell you the numbers. And it becomes a cross section. You become a big agent. Your fall out of escrow ratio will be so close to theirs. You go, well, my God, is this a coincidence? No, there's just a certain percentage that fall out. We were in a market one time where a little over 20% of the deals fell out of escrow.
Yeah.
We were in a market one time where only about 5% fell out of escrow. But whatever the current market is, because the market works off of fear or greed, like just those two emotions. And every decision everyone makes is always made on the basis of emotion. People pretend to themselves, like somebody who's an electrical engineer will pretend, I'm so logical that emotion doesn't enter in. Oh, you idiot. Of course it does.
Let me ask you this, Russell. So you're obviously an upbeat, positive individual. Clearly, you've gotten to a point, and maybe you've always been this way. This is what I'm going to ask, even to where I don't care what things cost. And I mean, you very much in the hour that I've gotten to speak with you and get to know you so far, you seem to not really have many cares in the world. You're not super high strung. You're not a very stressed individual.
Right.
That
would be true.
Have you always been that way? Is
No,
that a learned
no.
behavior? How did you get to this moment of zen that you are in your life now?
I was about to say zen. That's about
Yeah, well, that works. Here, let me answer the question in two ways. So one would be when I was doing 17 to 22 deals a year, okay, I was living from deal to deal. I was so worried about money all the time. I mean, all the time. If I saw a beautiful child, literally, it was a cute little boy, all I could think is, God, kids cost so much. It didn't matter what it was. A car drove down the road. God, that's so nice. Those cost so much. I was just so like, I had my attention fixated on not having enough money all the time, 24/7. It was something I was aware that this is stupid. And I thought part of the solution was not being broke anymore. And I remember reading some book. It was the stupidest book on success. I don't even remember the name of it. It was so stupid. But it had this one thing that I went, oh, God, I want that. The guy said he doesn't have any problems left that money would solve. And that became the nugget I took from that dumb book. I thought, I want that. I want to be able to feel and say, I don't have any problems money would solve. Like I had stage 3 bladder cancer in 2001, and it was aggressive. Did I have a money problem? No, I had a cancer problem.
Right.
And if I'd have had more money, like let's pretend I had an extra couple of million in the bank, would that have fixed the cancer better? Nope, not at all. There's some problems that money just doesn't fix. So I don't want to say when you get to a certain point. I had a brain tumor 3 years ago. Maybe it was 2. I actually can't remember. But I mean, it was a golf ball sized tumor in the top of my head. That's not a money problem.
Right. Right.
That has nothing to do with if you had more money, you wouldn't be having this issue. So to get and save some money, and I remember being at Keller Williams one time, and these people, they couldn't have been friendlier. And this was in Austin, and they said, "Oh, we have our regular house here in Austin, and we also have a house over on the lake. and you can come stay at our house. And I'm thinking, God, they must make a lot of money. I realized later I was making more than they were. I just don't behave that way financially.
Right.
When the crash came, those people lost all of their houses
Right.
because they were all on time payments.
Mm-hmm.
So you get this, like some people are going around acting rich, and then you get other people who have actually quite a bit of money, but they're not necessarily trying to impress people with get a load of how much money I have and I can piss through quickly.
You,
So you get these things where, so part of it was not having a money problem. And part of it, I would go, I'm a Scientologist, and I've had a tremendous amount of gain from just getting rid of my guilt, my transgressions, like things I've done wrong. People tend to focus or fixate on what's been done to them. Actually, the stuff that holds a person back isn't what's been done to them, it's what they've done. Because a being is basically good. The basic nature of man is good. And the simple proof of that is if I said to you guys, but if I'm talking to 1,000 people listening, you feel bad about the bad things you've done. Like the time you didn't go get your son when you said you would. You told him, I'll be there at 4, and you didn't go at 4. You understand?
Yeah.
You could have a transgression of omission or commission. You feel bad about those things. Evil people don't feel bad about the bad things they do.
Yeah.
Someone like Donald Trump, from his point of view, he's never done anything wrong in his life. And he has a difficult time. Why would people hate my guts? Because he hasn't done anything from his point of view. But when you have people, but he's not alone in being a lunatic. You have a lot of people in the society going around blaming everyone else for their conditions. Well, the truth is, when you do something, it is one's own transgressions that prevents their reach, like an agent who won't reach toward new customers. Just take that one. That agent has transgressions against customers.
Yeah.
They've done something. They've broken agreements. They did something. Sometimes the stuff they did, if you got it down to the actual thing, you'd go, well, hell, that's nothing. No, it was something. And what they did is they didn't keep an appointment, or they fudged it a little bit and then pretended like they didn't. So that's all that has to happen. And now all of a sudden, this basically really good person is walking around feeling like a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And it's just that simple.
Yeah.
Well, but you can sit down, you could actually sit down and write up your own transgressions. Like literally just start writing out you could take anything you did or failed to do that you should have done on some subject, some area. And then look, after you write it down, go, when was that exactly? Why was it a transgression? And who nearly found out about it? And you'd do that and you'd go, oh my God, I feel so clean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So does that make sense? Did I answer your question, man?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's, I think a lot of people out there are not at that level of Zen that you are. I will confess I am not. And there's some things that you said that rang true to me. And I think it's great for someone like me, other people listening, maybe even Eric, to be able to hear from someone like you who's kind of gotten past all of that, right? And to your point, right, like, is all of this, in your words, maybe bullshit that we put ourselves through with money and everything else, is it really important when you go back and think, okay, I had stage 3 bladder cancer, I had a golf ball sized brain tumor, that really puts things into perspective.
Yeah.
Right. And I think thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm. But I was just pointing out, money doesn't solve all problems.
Well,
Like
it doesn't. it doesn't buy all happiness either. You know, a friend of mine pointed out that spending time with people you love, be it
Yes.
your partner or your friends, this conversation, right? These are the things that are really valuable. These are things that make you feel really, really good. Getting out and whatever it is you like doing, most of the time, putting a lot of money on top of it or trying to augment it with money doesn't really do anything. So focusing on what makes you happy is kind of the name of the game, I think.
Yes, there's a difference. So I don't want to make some speech against money,
right?
Oh, because it's not at all. I mean, really not at all.
You're talking to two big capitalists, so don't worry about that.
Right. It's nice. Don't get me wrong. I love money.
But it's literally you can take anything and you can wreck it. You know what I mean? You can take anything and wreck it. Is there anything wrong with sex? No. But you could have it made wrong. You could get someone, create it in such a way that it's repulsive. You see what I'm saying? But if you say is the sex drive, money is necessary to live in the society. Now you might say, well, there's some societies that are like primitive where they don't actually use money or something like money. But that's a whole different thing. But when you start having,
there's still a currency. There's still some sort of currency there.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. But you could get if you're going to have where you have your own house and you get to fix the way you want it. By definition, you start having this. Well, am I responsible? Say, if you would help a neighbor if their house was on fire, but would it be up to you to go build their house? No. So you'd have people being self-determined and causative, but we have all of that.
Yeah.
And so it's literally like both of you are already highly, highly successful, and you're both really smart, really smart. So you're not what I would call an average person in any way, shape, or form. You both are leaders in your industries and where you are. You're looked up to, and the things that make you looked up to, it's not just stuff you say. It's actually who you are. Like, and I don't know much about you yet, Max, but Eric, I know you have had the most dynamic growth of your firm, and people who already had their own real estate companies, they actually had they had the whole thing. Like, no, I want to come be part of yours. Is it because your name is a clever name for marketing? No. I mean, seriously, no. What would be the attraction? Well, they know you're honest. Let's just start with that. There's no question. It doesn't mean you never make a mistake. Doesn't mean you never say something that's not 100% true. But if you did say something that wasn't true, as soon as you saw it wasn't true, you'd correct it. You'd go out of your way to go, oh, what I said, no, that was not right. I said that last week, and I now see that was wrong. Well, therefore, someone can trust you completely. Like, what does the contract you have someone sign when they join your company say? I doubt if most of them bother to read it.
Right.
Because it doesn't matter. They already know you're going to be fair no matter what. And even if there was something the contract didn't cover and they were leaving the company, you're not going to screw them. And they already know that on the way in, so they don't ever have to worry. They don't feel stuck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just the way to be. I mean, it's the way you are, Russell. It's the way Max is.
Yeah.
It seems to do it any other way seems exhausting to me. And
right.
Yeah, beyond the fact that it feels like the right thing to do, you know. Go ahead, Max.
I was going to say, the problem is when you lie, then you have to keep up with the lies.
It's
and then what lie did I tell somebody? And now, like, it's just just telling the truth is just a lot easier.
It takes less energy, but this is the thing. So if you go back to mindset, so if you analyze your own decisions, so if I could just pick, when I say it's the most important, so let's go back to the thing I started to quibble with you on when you said, well, nobody likes it. Okay. So if you make up your mind that what's occurring is an awful thing to have to experience, you got the message, it becomes an awful thing to have to experience. You could just as easily say, well, if I don't decide, it's like there's some things that are just not under your control. Let's say the weather. I don't care how able you get, you'll observe that you don't cause it to rain or to stop raining. I know this is sometimes there are people who think, no, I do. And I'm glad for you, but I'll still take an umbrella or whatever. There's things you don't cause. And you could go, well, I had a picnic planned today and then it rains. But you could still decide, I'm going to have a cheerful attitude about this.
Right.
It's not a silly technique. It's just, if you start, here's actually a fact. If you put a smile on your face, really now, this is sort of weird, it will trick your body. I'm not kidding.
No. You're right. I actually tell my guys, my loan officers, when like you can be having a bad day and it's okay, and you just lost a couple of deals and a couple fell out and whatever it was, and now you feel desperate. You feel, if I don't get this next deal, now that desperation comes out when you're talking on the phone and you're talking to a potential borrower or a potential referral partner. It doesn't matter what kind of day you're having. You have to smile. People hear the smile, and it changes the perception. If you're down and desperate, that comes across. If you smile, you're tricking yourself into being happy in that moment.
But it's the most wonderful trick there is. It literally is the most wonderful thing you can do, is have an attitude that it's all going to be fine. And not have this, oh my God, this happened, therefore. That's all. Because it becomes, you could take anything in your life and go, I don't have to be in agreement. One of the things, if you have, like, let's say a deal falls out and people go, oh my God. Well, they already have a sort of a scarcity mentality.
Yes.
And when you talk about increasing someone's income or the savings, like how much money they have, the point that gets overlooked almost always is, what is that person's acceptance level for it, whatever it is. Like, let's take speed. Like the speed at which you drive is the correct speed. People that drive slower than you are so stupid to be driving at that slow rate when you know they should be going a little faster. And people that zoom by you are maniacs. Okay. Now, this is especially true for you, Eric, because you have a Tesla Plaid. So somebody that shoots past you, they have to be like, what the hell's wrong with you to drive that fast? Now, if you take this and you go, so there's an amount of speed or randomity, physical randomity, that's the correct amount for you. Well, now let's go over to money. There's an amount of money that's the correct amount for you to have. You'll notice that people who win the lottery, the average length of time until they're broke is slightly less than 2 years.
That's insane.
Yeah, because they didn't really have a right to that money. But this person could have changed their mind, by the way, and go, I have every right to this, and actually wound up retiring wealthy. But because they pissed through it, so there's a certain amount of money that a person from their own point of view is supposed to have. And this varies. Like for me, when I was struggling, that amount of money wasn't zero, it was a minus number. So this is not just book learning. I'm telling you, I've been there.
Yeah.
And so what a person will do when they don't have enough to be at their correct amount, they'll do whatever they have to do to get it back up to that correct amount. It goes the other direction. If they get too much, they will do whatever they have to do to literally waste the difference to get back to their correct amount. You'd have to. So if you wanted to work on the correct thing, it would be getting the person's acceptance level up. Like if I had someone I was talking to and they were so careful with money, the first thing I would do is like talk to them about, let's talk about some ways you could tell me you could waste money. I don't want to waste money. I know. But if you can't waste any causatively, you can't have any.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me some stuff you could do to waste money, and get them to causatively mock up wasting money until it seems funny to them. You understand? Just take this edge off where they could start laughing about, well, actually, it's okay if I went and bought that magazine or whatever the hell it is. They take the seriousness off. Like when you're having fun, you're playing a game and you're winning at that game.
Right.
When it gets serious, you're losing.
Yeah.
Always. So fun, if you just make fun, I'm not kidding, fun would be if you just like, is this fun? There's stuff you do. I couldn't imagine doing, Eric, where you climb up the side of the wall with rocks and stuff. I'm not making a joke here. I couldn't. You're so physically fit, and I'm not. That I look at that and go, that's just not something I've ever done. I would feel so. I would be afraid, quite literally. You're not, because that's fun for you. So you take any activity. If the person couldn't call customers on the phone, first thing I'd be looking at is what would be necessary to make it fun. Like it's fun. It really is fun.
Yeah.
But not if you're trying to high pressure them into something and they don't want the comp. Then it's like, that's not fun.
Right.
So anyway, does this all help and make sense?
No,
That was great.
yeah, it's on the topic of fun. There's the idea of gamification on a lot of things. So an example I'll give: I read a book called Flow. It's a psychology of optimal human experience, and yeah, and what they talk about is that you can get in these flow states whenever you're doing something that's fun that has a goal. And I never realized it, but I'd always gamified dishes. Like I always enjoyed doing the dishes. It's because my game for myself was, how can I put all of the dishes away with as few movements as possible?
There
and
you go.
Without ever thinking of it. And I still to this day like do all the dishes because I have this silly game I do.
Yeah.
So
That's
Max,
beautiful.
Your game can be, how can we not go out of business during this during this downturn? And that'll be mine. That'll be mine also. So
it's but it's funny. Like we've identified over the last couple of months quite a few things that we can do, have done, will be doing to ensure that, right? And simple things. Let's open up the credit card bill and look at like, where are we wasting money that we don't even realize, right? There's a lot of different, and if you like, it hadn't really occurred to me that I'm gamifying that, but I am like, oh look, I just found a way that we could save $10,000. There was actually a way yesterday I found that we could save $30,000 a month. Like that was fun.
Wow.
Can you share that? What did you find?
There's services that we use for verifications of employment, and it's pretty standard in the industry. I'm sure you've heard of it, the Work Number, but there's a couple of different ones out there. And we really went back and analyzed what does it cost, and we really broke down their menu. Their menu is so extensive that when our staff is hitting a button, they don't even know what they're spending on it. So we went and looked, and I mean, we're spending $25,000-$30,000 a month on verifications of employment, where I can cut that down to maybe $5,000 or $7,000 a month just by getting some additional pay stubs from some borrowers, so that we can calculate income. There's sometimes where you just can't get around getting it because an employer won't verify. So, but you can also say, okay, staff, we're not doing this anymore. You've got to go through these protocols to be able to do it. And these 3 people are the only ones that can order it. So a couple things like that.
That's wonderful. And I just want to take, and again, I'm not trying to nitpick, the goal of not going out of business I would look at a way to reframe that. Honestly, this is the kind of thing that makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Like to put, like if the goal was, I don't want to go out of business, that's not a fun goal. I'd reframe it into something fun. That's
So
all.
I'll tell you what and I was making it kind of a
It's
joke.
like we do joke about that a lot. For
No,
us,
no.
the joking about not going
It
out of
kinda
business is fun.
Yeah, okay, and that's different.
So Russell,
That's different.
so here's our goal, right? Obviously, don't go out of business, but the goal that there are certain times that the goal is to make as much money as you possibly can. And right now, that's not the goal. That's not a very fun thing to do right now because you're just going to swim against the current. So our goal is to make it through this, make some money, but be positioned in a way that we are to be better positioned than any other company in Austin for 2025, which is whenever I think the market will come back. If I'm wrong about 2025, it doesn't matter. It's to be well positioned, better positioned than anyone else to take advantage of the good market when the good market comes back. That's the goal, and that's a lot.
That's fun.
Yeah.
This is fantastic. This honestly is fantastic. What else should we cover? Are we near the end? I don't even know.
I think we have to run in about 10 minutes. Funny you mentioned the feeling bad about not picking up your son because I have to leave in 10, 15 minutes.
Okay.
I wanted to, and you and I have not had this conversation. So I'm genuinely curious. I'd love to hear your thoughts on mentorship on from both. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you were mentored as a newer agent by some excellent people. You weren't?
No,
okay.
No, I was not. I wished I was.
Yeah.
And it's funny, by the time I was in a position to mentor people, it was a gradient thing of little tiny mentorships. If I knew something and understood something, I could go back to the guy. There's a man that he and I have had lunch, Dean Selvey. He and I have had lunch once a month for, let's say, the last 30 years.
Right.
Actually longer than that, but at least 30 years, a little over 30 years. And so I've been similar to the relationship you two have.
Yeah.
And it's been amazing, the number of things Dean's done that have helped me, but the number of things I've done and my help to him's been different. We've mentored each other, but I found something I learned is that help is the basis of all association, period. So a being is as valuable as he can help others. And a big part of intelligence is having some idea of what's going on with the other fellow.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've met people that have really high IQs and they're just such complete colossal assholes. No one would want to work with them. So you go, well, he's got a high IQ. This doesn't change much in terms of is the person's a functional idiot, because this awareness of others, like both of you shine in this department, quite literally, of caring for other people. Like this isn't something I'm instilling in you. It's already there. If you see someone that can be helped by you, you immediately want to help them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some stuff that I know very, very, very well. And it's sort of my duty to share that information. There's other stuff. If somebody said, what do you think is the correct way to do X? And I go, I don't know anything about it. Well, it's not that hard. Well, yeah, it doesn't matter. I don't know. Like I can't help you. I don't know that. Let's take pay-per-click and organic searches. I'm a moron on that subject, and you are a genius off the charts. Quite literally, if we just compared on that subject, I'm not qualified to teach someone. You are. And you get the point I'm making. So there's some stuff, nobody's an expert on everything. There is no such person. But there's some stuff and you actually can tell if you know it, could you easily teach it? If you couldn't easily teach it correctly to where they understand it, you don't know it yet.
Yeah. Is that why you write so much? You've always put and I share them in our internal Facebook group a lot. You had one the other day that was about leverage, talking about how and I know you've written these some time ago sometimes, and sometimes they're new, The one you
Those
posted.
are all old. Those long ones. Those
Yeah.
are all from about 10, 12 years ago.
So why, I've done the same thing. Why do you like to write so much? Why do you like to write
Well,
there?
it's when you know something. Like, let's take the one I know you would remember it. I talk about my sister Diane and how she became a nurse and then she didn't want to be a nurse, and how most people getting a JD after their name don't want to be lawyers. And it talked about meaningful work, that there was joy in meaningful work. And I got that idea of joy from meaningful work from Malcolm Gladwell. And I think he's a genius. And so I just took off and took and gave Malcolm credit for that, and then just talked about how it would apply to real estate. I think it is almost like it's not, it's the thing to do. It's like when I give a talk to a local real estate company or thing, my goal, I just start off with my goal here today is to lift you up. I'm very capable of lifting them up because I know if I look at what Tony Robbins does, let me use him as an example. Now it's interesting, and he's very effective. He's very, very, very effective at spotting someone's dumb idea that they have about themselves and their goals. He's actually amazing at it. It's interesting to me that he cannot teach what he knows. None of his coaches know, none of them. He can't teach this. It's a skill he has, but he can do it where he can just talk to someone and he can see what dumb idea they're using to hold themselves back. I can do that. So it's my job to do it. It's just that simple. When I hear someone, and as I say, I don't want to nitpick, but thinking of that this way, you're actually postulating or creating a negative future. Where if you take it and you change the words, which was perfect, make it into a gamify or something. I think you said like you changed, and you gave a perfect example of taking what most people would think is a mundane thing of washing the dishes, and gave a perfect example of how you turned it into a joyful activity, and you still to this day do it, and you're aware that you did that with well, that's beautiful. Well, you could get a person that they don't want to do a certain type of thing at their job. Let's say they don't want to contact people. How could they make it into a game? How could they make it into a game? What would they need to do for it to be fun? Because if it's not fun, they won't keep doing it.
Right.
It's that simple. If you can make it fun, if they can make it fun, they'll keep doing it. Anything that's fun, people, I want more of that. But if it's a drudgery, and there are people, if you go to you've seen this, if you've been in real estate long enough, you go to someone's house and the sink is full of dirty dishes. No one in that house thought it was fun to clean the kitchen. It's not complicated. So you can take anything.
They need to invite me over. That's what they need to do. So
Eric, after you pick up Beck, if you could swing by my house real quick, that'd be fantastic.
I have loved this, and I hope we can do it again sometime.
I can't thank you enough, Russell. I mean, for this, and you've meant a lot to me over the years, and you still obviously do. I think a lot of people reach out to you for advice, and I know I did, and you just kept giving every time I'd reach out to you and hit you back up. This is years ago whenever I was a new agent, and then now, the relationship we have now is obviously awesome. I'm happy for you that you have all your success. And
but here's the thing. I want to just point out what I did for you, because you did all the heavy lifting. You wrote to me. This is actually a fantastic point to end this on.
Yeah.
You wrote to me and you said, I'm doing really well. You were at about 50 million. And you said, I'm doing about 50 million, and I'm trying to decide if I should do X or Y.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the two things were. And I wrote back and said, which one do you get the most business from you currently? Let's say that was X.
Right.
And I wrote you back and said, do more of that. That was my help. But you did, and you wrote me back and you had gone from 50 million to, I think it was 94 or 96 million. And you said, this is fantastic. Thank you so much. But what I actually did was ask you, what do you get most of, like, what's the most successful thing you're doing? And you told me, and I said, do more of that.
Yeah. And then you said do less of what doesn't work also.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
So let me just say, for me, this is pretty cool because I've known Eric. We've been really good friends for a long time, and I watch him talk to his agents, but also just when we talk in general, and especially when you talk about what's going in this market. And so, like, we've done all these different things, and what he'll say is, you know, so we do this thing with our agents, and we sit down and we figure out, where did your business come from? You know, and only maybe 4 or 5 did it, but then we sit and break down, okay, where did we get all of this business from? What was the most effective? And then he says, well, do more of that.
Yes.
And so, to, like, for me to be able to see the backdrop behind where that came from is it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
it seems like advice you shouldn't have to give, right? But
but just the way Russell said it is exactly how you say it, and the fact that was the advice you get, I think that's
thank
awesome.
you for pointing that out, Max and Russell. I know it feels good to know that you're making an impact, and so, you know, the impact you've made on me spreads in the best way possible, and I can't thank you enough, man. Thank you for being on this, and I know we'll talk soon. I know.
Okay, Bill. Have
Russell,
a beautiful day.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure getting to actually meet the man behind the myth.
It's my pleasure, Max.
I've taken a lot away from this conversation, and I look forward to doing this again with you soon.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Beautiful.
guys. All right,
Bye-bye.
man. Have a great day, Russell. I'll see you.
Bye-bye.